The authorities take an equally dim view of operating your vessel in a negligent manner. Just as operating under the influence has both federal and state penalties, so it goes with negligent operation. Federal fines of up to $5,000, imprisonment for up to a year, or both, await the operator who decides to throw smart boating practices out the window. A few examples of what the law deems as negligent operation are: operating with the vessel overloaded. We already touched on this subject, but it's worth mentioning again. Boats 20 feet or less in length are required to have a capacity plate in full view of the helm. This plate contains information on how many people can be carried on board, maximum weight allowed, and maximum horsepower allowed if it's an outboard boat. Exceeding these can not only void the warranty for your particular vessel, but can put you in a dangerous overloading situation and severely increase your liability should an accident occur. The simple fact is, overloading is the leading cause of capsizing or rolling over, and capsizing is the second leading cause of boating fatalities in the United States. Amazing, isn't it? Such a simple rule being broken becomes the number 2 cause of boating fatalities. Be safe, be smart, and don't overload your boat. Of course, there's always the genius who looks for the loophole and says either my capacity plate was removed before I bought the boat, or since my boat was built before they required capacity plates, it was never installed. Or for whatever reason, the capacity plate doesn't exist, so I don't have to adhere to capacity restrictions. Well, not only is this line of thinking not smart, it's not true. The rule that governs the way the capacity information is figured for the capacity plate still applies to your boat even if it doesn't have a capacity plate. And it's easy to compute. The officer takes out his handy-dandy tape measure, multiplies the length of your boat in feet by the width in feet, and divides by 15. The result is your capacity. So let's say that your boat is 20 feet long and 6 feet wide. I multiply 20 times 6, and every time I do that, I get 120. I divide 120 by 15, and I get 8. So that means 8 persons are allowed on your 20-foot boat. Length times width divided by 15. Moving on, we have operating a boat in a swimming area. I know most of you out there are thinking, well, duh, but you'd be surprised how many people think it's actually funny or cool to show off your boat by driving it into a marked swimming area. Not smart. Not smart at all. Boating under the influence of alcohol or drugs. That's right. As I said earlier, boating under the influence falls under negligent operation 2. So that means that if you get caught drinking and boating, you get state fines for boating under the influence, federal fines for boating under the influence, and state and federal fines for negligent operation. Ask yourself very carefully, is it worth it? Excessive speeding in the vicinity of other boats. Remember, there's no white line down the middle of the river to keep you separated from other traffic. If you decide to blow the doors off of that boat you're passing by coming too close, be prepared for a sudden turn into your path. How quick are your reaction times? It's equally unwise to run a slalom race through a mooring area. Hazardous water skiing operations. What are those? Well, running a water skier through a swimming area, into shallow water, through fragile grasses, into endangered waterfowl or mammals, through a regatta or boat race, or into a solid object. You know, just lapses in common sense. Operating with a person sitting in hazardous areas around the boat. I'll bet you didn't even know that your boat had hazardous areas. Well, it does, especially when it's running at planing speed, which means running fast and flat across the surface of the water. Some of these areas would be on the boat's gunnels. Those are the tops of the area around the cockpit here. On the bow, when there are no bow rails or seats. On the transom, where it's easy to fall off into the propellers. And this last one may surprise you, on top of seat backs. That used to be a big practice, but those days are long gone. There were just too many people hitting the throttle and tossing themselves backward from the acceleration. Then the boat keeps going with no one at the helm, and wham! End of story. However, savvy manufacturers know that it's convenient to raise yourself higher than the windshield when driving, so they stepped up and did the owners a huge favor by making seats like this one with flip-up bolsters. Now you're positioned higher with the wind in your face, still legal and surprisingly comfortable. Remember, these are just some examples, and as you can see, they all involve acting just plain stupid. By boating smart, you can keep all the fun of your boat while avoiding all the penalties of poor judgment.